Yeah, I just want to have a little discussion with Doug Ford here about those grade 6 math results, because they're not very good. They're, they're certainly of concern, and we need to look at them very closely. You know, for those that don't know, it really says that 50% of math students, grade 6, got an A or a B. The other 50% got a C or D, and some failed. That's not very good. But so we got to look at that. And one of the issues is it's declined. In the last 10 years, it's gone down from 60% down to 50%. It's all about distribution. It's not about achievement. It's about the distribution of marks. Here's the thing. It's just the dividing line between a B and a C. It doesn't tell you anything about the dividing line between an A and a B, or a C and a D, or a D and a fail. It doesn't tell you that. We don't know that. That doesn't tell you. It just says that up at this higher level, 1 in 10 students, because it's just a decline of 10%, 1 in 10 students moved from, in the last 10 years, from a B to a C. Therefore, you can look at it this way because of the number of students in there. 1 in 10 students went from a 71 to a 69. When you look at it that way, it doesn't really sound that bad, because it does not tell you about the distribution of the other students, how well they did. We can assume that they all went down. That's just an assumption, okay? We need to look at that and say that's just an assumption, okay? What could have caused that? Well, is it possible that the test got harder over the years? It's true, but that's just an assumption. Could be that in writing the test, they always wanted to make it different from the previous years, so kids just couldn't piggyback. So they changed the problems, and perhaps the wording on the problems changed. It's possible. The other thing too, in an effort to make them different each year, they added, perhaps just on one problem, an extra calculation that had to be made to get to the answer. That's true. Or over the last 10 years, there's been an increase in the dependence on language in explaining your math. In other words, it's not so much about the raw answers, it's more about how the student explained how they got their answer. There's a lot of things, but then again, what I've just said, these are all assumptions. Just like it's assumptions that all the marks went down, not just that at that dividing line, because it's just about the distribution of the marks. Okay? So you got to look at all those things and say, okay, it looks bad, but maybe it's not as bad as we think. Maybe it's just an assumption. And it's hard for the government to go deciding things on assumptions. They shouldn't do that. So anyways, I look at that and I say, okay, maybe teachers are being blamed for something that really isn't an issue at all. But then Doug's going to say, Doug, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that, okay, let's look at grade 9 and grade 6. Why is grade 9 up in the mid-80s and the grade 6 is down at 50% who get an A or a B? Well, that's significant. That's a significant difference, and it needs to be addressed. Okay? So anyways, I'm not going to go down certain roads. I'm not going to go down the road that says, well, maybe grade 9 is just an easier test. I don't believe that. I'm confident that our grade 9 teachers are doing awesome math and really pushing the students to be the best. Or maybe I can just look at the grade 9 students' successes and say, well, really that's just a mirror of the elementary division, because those students were just in grade 8 months before. True? It is true. They were in grade 8 elementary panel months before. They just started in grade 9. Could be that. But I'm not going to go down that road. Or I could look at our universities in Ontario and say, is there success or failure? And I look at our universities in terms of math. When you look at Waterloo, we like the University of Toronto. You look at our university and say, my goodness, these are some of the top universities in the world. We even brought Stephen Hawking to here because of the high level of math we do here. And our public school systems are the feeder systems for those schools. Something's not fitting right. How can these universities be so successful? Think of all the technology centers in Ottawa. Those all come from those universities. They come from the feeder schools, which are our, public education system. They are a success. They're creating jobs and wealth for Ontario. So that doesn't seem to fit. Okay, so why is there this disparity between grade 9 math results in EQAO and grade 6? It's significant. Mid-80s down to 50, it's significant. Okay? Well, look at it this way. There's 4 things I want to bring up. First of all, in grade 9, students are streamed. So that mid-80s is actually for your academic. You actually have an applied level as well. The applied level is getting in the mid-40s. So if you mix them together, you're actually in the mid-60s, mid to low 60s. Depends on distribution. Again, it's just distribution. What's that mean? That means the difference between grade 9 results and grade 6 results now aren't that significant. Next, number 2, I want you to look at this. Grade 9, those in the academic panel or stream have a full-time access to a teacher just teaching the academic stream. And they applied the same thing. Separate teacher, full class, just on that stream. But when you get into grade 6, that one grade teacher has the 2 streams mixed. Which means that when the teacher is teaching to the higher level students, can't answer the questions to the applied level students. Or when he or she is dealing with the applied level students, not meeting the needs of the higher level students. They're mixed. And that is another reason for that level that now that was mid-60s should actually be down lower. It's expected. It's designed into the system. That's how we do it. So you can't go comparing grade 9 to 6. You're comparing apples to oranges. And you're denigrating grade 6 teachers for something that is just built into the system. It's not their ability to do math. It's not their willingness to do a hard job and get it done. It's built into the system. That's 2. But there's another one. There's another reason those grade 6 marks are lower. It's called combined grades or split grades. See, in grade 9, it's just grade 9. Grade 6, there are hundreds of classes in Ontario that are a 5-6 grade or a 6-7 grade. They've existed through the years, they exist now. Now that adds another complexity because you get that one grade 6 teacher in a classroom teaching 2 curriculums, applied, an academic one, applied, and you mix them all. Now you can actually see, you can actually understand that a teacher's time is being divided. It's being sliced and diced, and the access that the students have to learning math at their level is being minimized just because of how we design our schools. Nothing to do with our teacher's ability to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That's silly. That's just a canard. Really, you can't even think of that. It's just how it's designed into the system. So now you see all those 3 things, you put them all together and you say, well, that explains the difference between grade 9 results and grade 6 results. But that's not the last one. The last one, hard to measure, but it's probably the reason for the decline. And it's that, the 4th one, you know what it is? It's that big word called inclusion. You know what it is? That means that mixed in that grade 6 class are your ADHD students, your OCD students, your fetal alcohol syndrome students, your Tourette's, your oppositional defiant, all those, there's so many different types. They're all mixed in the classroom. Now 10 years ago, right, 10 years ago, if you went to a school, you would find a special ed classroom and those students migrated over there for academic, math, and language. Okay? They might have been mixed in, but now they're mixed in all together. You go look for a special ed room, you're probably going to find an empty room now. So look at what a teacher has to do in grade 6. Often they're teaching 2 grades, applied and academic level students, as well as all the behavior students, all the, MID students, and all those, they're all in the same room. And that one teacher has to meet the needs of all these kids. Something has to give. Okay? So there it is. I'm just trying to explain to you why grade 6 is different. Results are different. It's built into the system. It's nothing to do with a teacher's ability to do math. The fact is that teacher is divided into so many parts. There's so much attention, and it's just a miracle that they get anything done. So before you go denigrating students, you better realize how the system works. And I hope that this explains why those numbers are there. And you need to stop, Doug, you need to stop denigrating students when it's really built into the system. Now, it's not your fault that if you didn't understand this, because if your Minister of Education is not an educator and doesn't know how schools work, how classes are made up, how they're mixed, and how the difference between rural schools and urban schools, and it's so complex, right? If that's not being explained to you, though, that's not your fault. But using your position to foster hatred towards teacher unjustly is your fault, and you have to stop. Okay? So Doug, if you're still listening to me, I will give you that participation ribbon if you've lasted this long. And I'll give you a higher mark if you apologize to teachers, because you're really denigrating them unjustly. And it's not fair, and it's not right. And my message to teachers is, be strong, take care of each other, and know deep down in your heart, you do miracles each and every day. And to parents, just a message to let you know that these teachers care about your kids, they care about you. So please show them that you care about them. Anyways, take care and be well.